Dominique.
Good evening. My name is Nigel Chambers. I'm from Big Go Bell Media. Maurice, thank you so much for your time today. Super excited to talk about your new project, Dominique, which is going to be available in theaters on demand and digital October 11th. How you doing today?
Good, Nigeria. Very nice to talk to you.
Oh man, I've been such a fan of yours for so many years, and it's interesting about acting because typically with age we tend to slow down, the mechanics stop to work, and we're not so durable as we used to. But I don't know about you, man. It seems like you just got better and better over time, and even in this role now, I think this might be one of the most menacing, but yet sort of just unpredictable character that you portrayed here. Dominique is a fascinating film, and I will say, and as I've told folks that whatever bit of hope that you think you're going to get with this film, just forget it. It's brutal, it's unforgiving. It will be the most unpredictable amount of events that you've ever experienced. For you and the resume that you have, the type of projects that you've even been on, including Narcos, I want to know for you, how special was this project for you?
I think with this project, I really, you know, when it's funny how the story came together, and I don't know if you know anything about it, but Dominique was waiting for me at the gym, and she had waited for 2 or 3 days. We go to a private gym that is by invite only, friends, and it's a little island of industry people, I guess, that meet up there, kind of creatives, what have you. And Dominique showed up one day and she's like, I'm doing this film. Would you consider like reading this script? I went to my friend at the time, who he and I were producing a few things together, and he's like, yeah, I told her to be here. She's, and I said, all right, well, I'll read the script. So I read it. I enjoyed the script. It seemed like a fun ride. And then I wanted to meet with the director to see what his vision was. I think when I met Michael Hayda, I knew that he has the type of mathematical mind and the type of vision that I knew it was at least going to be something that was going to be fun. But he also has a meticulousness in the way that he writes, in the way that he was talking about setting up shots and doing things that, I think film is a lot like when I talk about it to people that are in the industry, I normally compare it to cryptocurrency. I'm like, you can invest in Bitcoin and you know that you're going to get a return, and it's going to be a specific return. But with these smaller cryptocurrencies, which I'm not a real cryptocurrency guy, I'm just using it because it sounds like a good analogy. I've seen people invest in small things and they hit huge.
Yeah.
And that's what, investing in a small independent kind of film can be, which you see it and you see the potential. And if it hits in the way that you hope it does, then there's a mini explosion around it, and
Right.
sometimes a huge explosion. And I think that that's what we ended up getting with Dominique. And I think it's why actors, by and large, aren't just sticking to large studio films, and why they do independent films, because there's nothing more special than having visions align and having that all come to fruition.
Yeah, I would say as a critic too, it's beautiful to see the world tend to turn back to the independents. The independent filmmakers and actors during the pandemic got us through that hard, difficult time. And we also got to see a lot of people artistry in a way that we haven't, because typically in those bigger blockbusters, they want you for particular roles, typecasting, but now we get to see everybody in roles and type of characters that we've never seen them in. So I agree, and I think the investment going back into the indies is definitely the way forward. And then again, when you have somebody with you with such a pedigree to bless it, it's kind of like, oh, well, there's the extra bit of notoriety to it as well. I gotta ask you here now. I talked to Michael, and as you mentioned, he's a visionary. He's thinking granular with this. So when we get introduced to Chief Santiago, we kind of understand his should I say, his influence and his alliances and whatnot. But Michael seems that this story was put right in the middle of things, which means that there is going to be maybe a prequel to this as well as a sequel, which we know. When you step into a character and you're putting right into the middle of the story, what's sort of the prep for you, and then what's sort of the excitement to possibly explore this character even more in towards of his origins?
Right. I enjoy writing. I've always been a creative writer. I spent a lot of time, before I was into acting, before I knew what acting was, drawing, writing, creating short story. I wasn't really involved in the arts in my life until I wasn't one of those people that knew exactly what they wanted to do with their life. I think acting was something that sort of culminated over time and then finally may have shown itself in one moment, but it was always there in different aspects in under the surface. So writing was one of my first ways of expressing myself kind of creatively. So now when I get characters, what I enjoy doing is creating backstories for them. I used to catch myself on set dreaming about what their life was when I was playing a character. So I immediately started getting into just writing out what my version was. And what I noticed was that it gave me a clarity of intention. It gave me just a clarity of motivation. I was able to deal with people differently because there were never any empty gaps. The gaps were always filled with something that I can reference back to mentally.
Understood. That's interesting now because I think you definitely need a backstory in order to jump into a character like this. Chief Santiago, the head of the Lucas Police Department here, some of the most grueling scenes comes by his order. I don't want to give anything away, but I'm curious about the very particulars in some of these scenes that we can dance around. Um, if you want somebody's gone, he's going to do it by any means. Because as I kind of outlined in my review, everybody has a boss, and he does too. And if he needs to clean up his trail, he would do so. I'm curious though, the filming of some of these scenes was sort of just the artistry behind it. What do you lock into in order to kind of see these scenes kind of play out, considering the ramifications of them? Where do you kind of mentally put yourself at?
Well, again, writing helps a lot for understanding the vision and getting together with a director and understanding, there were a lot of times that I would ask him a lot of questions about other characters' backgrounds. It wasn't my real
Mm.
job as an actor to understand what their background was. But when I was writing and I would run into a question about maybe Conejo's character, who was like my right hand guy, or even Dominique, I would ask, well, so in your story, in your Bible, Dominique, like where does Dominique, like what was her relationship? Like how did she end up special forces, or how did she end up trained? Was she underground trained? Was she part of a
Yeah.
resistance? Like I don't really need to understand this, but I need to understand the way that my character would probably try to see her atmospherically. Like how would he place her? What were the questions that he would ask? And I want to get his, insight so that I can then create a more vague outlook of my character toward Dominique so that I can scrutinize her in a very kind of specific way. But like with characters like Conejo, it was I had specific questions because I wanted to know what our relationship was.
Understood. Yeah, that's super, super important. So look, before I wrap on my last question, I'm gonna make a call out really quickly to everybody because this next question will absolutely be a spoiler. And again, you can check out Dominique in theaters, which I suggest, and on demand and digital October 11th. Now, in talking to Michael, I again praised him about how granular he thinks, and as somebody who's when you come into these sort of this action thrillers, we want everything. So I thought it was a super interesting decision about him removing a particular scene at the end credits that all of us wanted to kind of see how it was going to play out. I'm wondering you for the actor and kind of understanding the fate of your character when this isn't actually filmed, or is it filmed? Maybe it's used for the sequel of sorts. I'm just wondering for you when you don't necessarily film out the fate of your character, how do you sort of approach that? Is this something you kind of relinquish, or how do you kind of make peace with that? Because typically with actors and their characters, they want to see it all the way out. But this one we kind of didn't get to get all the way across the finish line with. So how as an actor, how do you kind of approach that?
I mean, I think the question that you're asking me literally goes exactly to what Michael's hopes was, which is that the hope of something being answered isn't, and it's going to continue having you ask the question, whether it's to me, to yourself, and ultimately, if the question is important enough, to see the next version or the next iteration of what the film's going to be.
Genius. You are genius. Well, listen, Maurice, I really, really, really appreciate your time. Fantastic job once again, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you have coming up. I quickly did people take a look at your upcoming credits on IMDb. Is there anything you might be able to say about Hellfire? It doesn't really have a date attached to it, but I do see
No,
it as upcoming.
Hellfire, it's going to be coming out. Like we produced Hotel Cocaine, and
Yeah,
we've just wrapped up
brilliant,
on
by
the
the way.
first scene. And thank you. Yeah, we're working on the second season now, and figuring where that's going to go. But yeah, it's just been, it's been an interesting time, not just in the industry but in the world. I'm
Yeah.
grateful that I can continue to bring, ideas and inspiration to people via, whether it's me writing or whether it's me, portraying characters. I think that, this community, we really rely on each other to keep moving forward. So I'm grateful to be able to do what I do and to be able to bring it to the people.
And I am grateful for you as well. Well, listen, I look forward to talking to you again soon because if it's something I know about you, you ain't never slowing down. So I know we'll be talking about a future project very soon.
Thanks,
Really,
Nigeria.
I really appreciate the time today.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Nigeria.
Absolutely.
I